Hey guys, Lorrena Magaña here with new Filmmakers Los Angeles, coming to you from the showroom of Filmmakers Los Angeles here in West Hollywood. Today I'm talking to Director Sherry Greer about her new film, Stained. Hi Sherry, how are you?
Good, I'm good.
So tell us how you came up with the concept with Stained.
The concept is so interesting. I had a coworker, well I still have a coworker. She was house hunting and she was telling me one day, she's like, "You're not gonna believe this house I saw." And she was describing the stain on the wood floor, and that instead of them pulling the floorboards up, they just varathaned on top of it, left it, and unfortunately it's where a gentleman had passed away. And when she told me that, I was in the car with Catherine, who is the actual writer of the script. And I was just like, "You're not gonna believe this story." And then she's like, "Oh, that's so great. Well, what if we do this? Well, what would happen if this happened?" And then she says, "I'm gonna write the script." I said, "That's cool." So she wrote the script, and then I read it, and I was like, and I'm like flipping through the pages, and I'm like, "Oh, this is great." And then I sent it off to Brandon, who happens to be the director of photography, and he's like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so that's how the whole thing started, is between the initial story and then the script getting done, and it was exciting. So that's how we started doing it.
How much or how little did the story change from the time that you read it to when you had a finished product? Like, did Catherine immediately just take it and run with it, and then in a matter of hours say, "Here you go, Sherry, I've got a script for you"?
She did not. Another producer had sent out a request for some scripts. So she specifically wrote the script to be shot in Idaho or something like that, in the Midwest. And then the producer read it and said they don't have the ability to do the computer generated graphics that was in the script itself. So they said, we're gonna pass. So she said, "Oh, they passed." I'm like, So I read it, and I'm like, "Well, let's see if Brandon will do this." So, and then that's how it happened, and then that happened, and then for the changes, because we didn't have the original setting where everything took place. Once we found out we couldn't find another farmhouse and we had to move it to the city, the changes happened really quick. Brandon and I would hook up, and then we would go through it step by step and say, "Well, we can't do this, we can't do this, we can't do this. Where can we change the setting to?" And so as soon as that started happening, then I would say to Catherine, "Hey, we need the script changed," and she would change it within hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then it would just change really quick, and it just moved like that.
Now, how much changed? I mean, you really had to be malleable when you were in, pre-production and post-production for this.
We did, yeah. In the pre-production, it was, who has a house we can use? And then this person has a house we can use. Okay, we're going to change it to this house. Who has the flooring? Who has this? Who has that? Yeah. And then that was all pre-production. And then once we had the shot list all set up, we were able to make it flow relatively quickly. But what was interesting was when we started using the fog in a specific shot, it had eked into the house. And so once it eked into the house, it was like, "Oh, that looks kind of cool." And so then we started using the fog through the whole thing, because it happened, and so we just went with it. And we incorporated it into the script, and it ended up being like its own character.
It is, and I love that you have a modern take on the horror genre, because you're not quite sure what it is that you're watching.
Right.
From the beginning, you're sort of like, "Oh, is this a thriller?
What's exactly going to happen?
What's exactly going to happen?" And so you're watching it, and it sort of keeps a steady pace, and then you have that Hitchcock moment where you have that reveal, and it's a collective, "Oh, shit."
Yeah. Well, it is. And what's funny though is I laugh every time I see it. Your body jerks, but you laugh. You're like, "Oh my God, that's so..."
No, there was no laughing.
No, there was no laughing on your part? Oh, I'm sorry.
I just went, "Oh shit." And then when he's taking the mirror and he's sort of, his hand is shaking, I was like, "Don't do it. Don't." You're actively participating, and it's like watching you're watching it going, don't do it.
I know. But see, that's the great part about having a scary movie. It's like that knock in the night when you're like dead asleep, and there's a sound goes off, and you're like, oh God, what was that? And you're like, then you're listening further, and you're moving towards, and you're like, I'm gonna get up, and you get up, and you don't find anything, or you do the opposite. You stare in your doorway, and you're staring, and all of a sudden you start creating, images of people that aren't there, and you're like freaking yourself out. To me, that is the best type of scary movie you could possibly make, and so that's what when we were doing it, that's what we were trying to embrace, was that fear, that primal fear that happens to people just by a simple sound, or in this case, a setting.
And there is so much imagery too on, in the Father's house that you don't really, the first time you're watching it, you sort of go, your mind registers, but then you don't really think about it. And, in the beginning of the film, you're sort of trying to figure out, when the title credits are rolling, like, what is the image that I'm looking at?
Yeah.
And then it all correlates back, and it takes you a second going, wait, and then you got to rewatch it again. And it's a great testament to, you as a filmmaker, that you want to keep watching it. But my question is, are you ever going to expand it into a feature?
Oh, I know.
Or, like dive into, expand and change the story just, ever so slightly with Catherine, and then like expand it into a feature.
You know what? We could, but it always kind of felt like this brief moment in time. Just. So we were like, no, this is perfect. It's just like, just the way it is. I mean, I think if we expanded it into a feature, we would lose that. There would have to be so much backstory, and then you would have to go more into the creation of science fiction, or even more of a demonic area that I don't think we wanted to go there. So I think that movie itself is kind of like in it on a whole. I mean, if somebody said, hey, will you create that? It was like, oh yeah, okay. Then we would expand it. But as a feature, right now it's just like kind of like a nice little niche unto itself.
It's so good.
So, thank you. Oh. It was so much fun to make. And everyone was so excited to do it that, you could feel it. You could feel it. And there's only 5 of us. So
I mean, what kind of, with your actors, did you have any sort of rehearsal, or was it just like, here's the script, guys, I'm going to have a couple interviews with you, see where you're at as far as character development is concerned, and then from there, it's the day of the shoot, you better have brought it?
Yes, and that's basically exactly what it was. I called up Carlos, and I had emailed him the script. We went over it, and I gave him the backstory of the character that he was going to play, and then when he showed up that day, it was like I already expected him to be within the character itself, and he was. He grew out his his facial hair. He got a little chunkier. I mean, he embraced the character of Jonah. So that was good. But for Brian, it was a different thing. The original idea was to have more of a emaciated body, an older man. Yeah. But the guys that I called up, they couldn't make the shoot dates. So I'm like, oh no, I need somebody. Yeah. And Brian kindly stepped in. He's like, I'll do it. And so that's how we ended up with Brian, playing the demon part.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So cool.
So, but it was great. Brian doesn't really have a lot of words, but he really emoted. He really brought that, I'm going to scare you. I'm going to really scare the crap out of you. So that was good. But for Carlos, it was nice because, and I really appreciated when I was, when we were doing the kitchen scene, and he was, the house is draining him of his energy, and, he's just like being basically sucked dry. I was just talking at him the whole time on how to walk and make it more intense, and I was really happy he was okay with that. Because usually you just let actors go and you set them in the direction and they embrace it and they go forward. But for some reason I just was like, you gotta get a little further, and so that was nice.
But that's good though.
Yeah.
You're an actor's director.
Yeah.
You're feeding them.
Yeah, feed them their desire to be
Scared to death.
scared. Yeah.
Yeah. Scared. They're scared shitless. There you go.
There you go.
I can say it. So can you. I just said it.
Yeah. I keep editing my word out so I don't swear.
It's fine. Well, Sherry, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for scaring the shit out of me.
You
by the
are
way.
very welcome.